We are no different than anyone else. We all have families. To Samuel's family, your dedication to finding Samuel has been extremely moving. While being able to lay charges and locate Samuel does nothing to lessen a family's grief, it can help bring some sense of resolution to loved ones who grieve and according to their culture and traditions. I also want to acknowledge the Confederacy of Treaty 6 as well as Treaty 7 and 8 for their ongoing support. In addition, I want to thank our Indigenous Relations Advisor, Abby Sly, who could not be with us today, but did some tremendous work behind the scenes. I know there have been questions and speculation around the timeline, but I hope this investigation illustrates how seriously we take missing persons case, and not all police work is done in the public eye. Our Major Crimes Branch was investigating this long before the first news release was issued, and as Detective Bueller has previously stated, every step that was taken in this investigation was done strategically. As the Chief of Police, I want to commend our members for all the work they have done to leverage the strengths of the community and Samuel's dedication to family and to bring him home. Thank you for being here. I will now invite Staff Sergeant Andrew Larson up to say a few words.
Thank you, sir. And good afternoon. I'm Staff Sergeant Andrew Larson with our Edmonton Police Homicide Section. I'm the team commander of the investigation of Samuel Bird's disappearance. On October 15th, we arrested 38-year-old Brian Farrell and charged him with second-degree murder in the homicide of Samuel Bird. One day later, Samuel's remains were located in a rural area outside of Edmonton. Mr. Farrell will make his first court appearance on October 20th. While there's been a great deal of speculation and social media detective work throughout this investigation, which at times has impeded our work, I'm relieved to be standing here with this information today. As Chief Driechel stated, there's still a lot of work to do on this file, but I want to thank him and our chain of command in their trust with our team and the investigative process. I know there's been a lot of scrutiny about what has been occurring throughout this investigation, and our efforts were completely supported. So thank you, sir. I'd also like to thank Samuel Bird's family for their patience and trust throughout this process as well. I have no idea of the pain and heartbreak you have been feeling, missing Samuel and not knowing where he was. While we could not provide you with much information about the ongoing investigation, which I know can be incredibly frustrating when you're hurting and wanting answers, you placed your trust in us, in our investigative team, and Detective Bueller. I do not take for granted how difficult this has been, and I'm glad we could at least do our part to bring some measure of resolution and justice for Sam. You see a number of folks with us up here today. They are part of our incredible investigative team that's been working on this file from the start, and I feel it's important that they are recognized. You all know Detective Jared Bueller. Jared's an amazing investigator. He's an incredibly hard worker whose passion and care about this investigation is unmatched. And also, this team has worked tirelessly with him on this investigation for the last 5 months. So from our homicide team, with us here today is Detective Rio, Detective Neufeld, Detective Lynch, Detective Lawrence, Detective Young, Detective Kowalchuk, Detective Raposo, and Detective Marsh. We also received a lot of assistance from Constable Broadfoot from our Missing Persons Unit, our analyst, Amy Rago, and our family liaison, Carla Giesbrecht. Also want to acknowledge the work of the members of our Operational Support Division, several search and rescue teams, including the Parkland Search and Rescue and the Search and Rescue Dog Association of Alberta, the RCMP, and our alert sheriffs. Thousands of hours have gone into getting us to where we are. We pulled out all the stops in order to find Sam and to bring the person responsible to justice. So thank you to the team, and I'm going to hand this over to Detective Bueller.
Thanks, boss. Chief. On October 16th at approximately 4 a.m., our team found the resting place of Samuel Bird in a stand of trees off a farmer's field on a rural road under a waning crescent moon directly west of Edmonton. It's a moment I'll remember forever. It was a privilege to share that image with Samuel's grandmother, Jerry, who shared that Samuel's name was Little Boy on the Moon. Ashin Hahibi Wahiba Apadaji in his paternal Stony Iska language, and Ashakapis in his maternal Cree language. I believe everything happens for a reason. It's hard not to believe that we were meant to find Samuel on that day at that time. I want to begin by reiterating my thanks to all the members of our team who are here and all the other sworn and civilian members of the Edmonton Police Service and our partner agencies who have tirelessly invested so much of themselves into locating Samuel. I also want to express my appreciation to our families who have supported us in this work. I have been more absent than present from my home in the past 4 months and couldn't have played my part without the support of my wife and family. Exactly 4 months to the day Samuel was located, our team embarked on this investigation, which would become known as Project Hobbledehoy. That's Hobbledehoy. Hobbledehoy is a term which has been used to describe a boy in the awkward stage between childhood and adulthood. This seemed to fit Samuel at the time of his disappearance. Our mission has always been to locate Samuel's remains and return them to his family. We believed there was only one way to accomplish that mission and embarked on a carefully considered path to achieve that goal, understanding that failure was a more likely outcome than success. Until 3 a.m. yesterday morning, I wasn't sure we would succeed. There have been many setbacks, but our team had never lost hope and always found another path forward. The cost of our investigative strategy included withering public criticism, which spanned political comment to daily denigration on social media. I have personally received correspondence questioning my integrity and ability as investigator. Criminal investigations are not conducted in public, and especially not on social media. While there have been positive aspects to the public and social media attention Samuel's case has drawn, there has also been an element I would characterize as social media vigilantism. At several stages, this directly impacted and jeopardized the police investigation. Notwithstanding that Samuel's remains have been located and charges laid, there continue to be references to narratives I have previously rejected as false. There are now demands that others, specifically children, be charged in relation to Samuel's disappearance and death. While I would normally refrain from comment, as this case is now before the courts, I believe it is necessary to address these claims and demands directly, as they continue to detract from our continuing investigation and what may be a protracted prosecution. We now have a near complete understanding of the circumstances of Samuel's disappearance and death. Any videos purporting to depict Samuel's death are categorically false. The results of our investigation have determined that the family of the accused, Brian Farrell, were not present or involved in Samuel Bird's disappearance or murder. Narratives which have portrayed other youths as being involved in Samuel's murder directly or as a party to the offense have been confirmed false through our investigation. The continued doxing of any youth associated to this investigation is morally and legally inappropriate. While our investigation will continue, this case is now before the courts where it will be tried. Investigations are not conducted on social media, nor should they be tried there. I will conclude by thanking you, the accredited media, for your respect and careful coverage of this case from the outset. Thank you.
Okay, we'll take questions. If you have a question, if you can please use the microphone so it is picked up on the live feed, please.
Hi, my question is for Detective Bueller. Thank you so much. My name is Sarah Comedy, and I'm with Local News. Going into what you can with the minors that are being named online, they're like, frankly, we're seeing names. How concerning is that moving forward? And what does the public need to know when it comes to that?
Well, I think first and foremost, and I'm not a lawyer, but I believe that it's legally inappropriate to name or accuse any youth in Canada of a criminal offense. So that's the most important thing for people to remember. And I also said that it's just simply morally not acceptable to do that. No kid is perfect. We were all kids. We all made good choices and many bad choices, Samuel included. Many of these kids were his friends. They come from similar circumstances. They were caught up in the situation that ultimately led to this. And but I'll go back to my statement that we have fully investigated this. We now fully understand the circumstances and all the nuances that led to this. Anyone in the public who thinks they have a better understanding than that needs to give their head a shake right now. They need to put their keyboard away and they need to stop. It's not okay for this to continue the way it's continued. We've put up with it until now because we were focused on other things, but it's no longer appropriate.
Are you able to speak to as well, Brian Farrell is 38 years old, Samuel's 14. How disturbing is it that connection there?
I don't think it's appropriate to discuss the information we've collected with respect to what relationship did or didn't exist between Samuel and the accused at this point. It's complicated, and those facts are part of the investigation. They'll certainly be part of the prosecution, but I don't think it's appropriate to discuss it in this forum publicly.
So you're, at this time, you're not able to confirm what kind of relationship there was between the two, and if he was the father of someone that Samuel was with, or anything like that?
I think that information is pretty much out there already. So there is definitely a relationship and association between them, and that's been discussed widely publicly.
But can you confirm that?
Exactly what?
Well, is Farrell the dad of Samuel's girlfriend at the time?
Farrell is the father of another youth who was an associate of Samuel. I won't get into the nuance of their relationship at the time, but there was a past association, yes.
Detective, you had said that Samuel's body was located, I think, in a farmer's field west of Edmonton.
In a stand of trees adjacent to a farmer's field.
Was it in the Carrot Creek area, or did we get more specific about it?
No, it wasn't. Far from it, actually. It was within the area that we previously identified. I don't know if we've released the location publicly yet. Your question is a good one because it illustrates how dynamic the investigation was in the last 3 weeks. The Carrot Creek information, as I said there, was the best information we had at the time. That was not a ruse. It wasn't a tactic. It was a legitimate search for Samuel. This investigation has had many, many roadblocks, twists, turns, and the last 3 weeks have been probably the most active of the entire case.
And if I've got the timeline correct, so the accused was arrested and then Samuel's body was found. Can you say anything, was he in custody when that happened?
He was.
Did he finally reveal it? Or?
I'm not going to comment on that.
And sorry, just the last question. You said basically that these videos that are circulating are just categorically false. Are they, do you know at this point, are they someone else? Are they AI? Are they something, do you know?
Well, I'd be the wrong guy to ask about that. I couldn't even get my computer to work this morning. But
You just know they're not.
they're not Samuel. And I don't even care about those videos anymore, other to say that they're ridiculous. And I'm angry about the time we've wasted with them.
Can I just step in on this one?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and I think it's time that, we recognize significantly with the amount of social media and the misinformation that occurs in these investigations, it really changes the dynamics for us as a police agency or police organization. And it's something, it's a phenomenon that we're gonna have to just understand. It's not as cut and dried as it used to be, and I think that responsible media reporting is important to us, right? That transparency is important, but when these things start to develop this way, the amount of noise and disruption that's occurring is extremely disruptive to these organizations or to these investigations. I think this is going to be a challenge moving forward. We know what occurs in social media. We know the disruption, but it really, really hampered the investigative flow here. And I think it's something that we all need to reflect on. The people out in the netherworld and in social media need to reflect on that. If they truly want to help the police, sometimes maybe saying nothing is the best. And, I know Detective Bueller's been very vocal about that. It's something that I'm raising quite loudly. We have a job to do. It's an important job. There was nobody here that didn't want to see this to a successful conclusion, but when we're being torn in 100 different directions like this, it was very, very difficult. And obviously not only detrimental to the investigation, but the police officers involved. So I just kind of really wanted to jump in there, Jared. Thanks.
So I just want to clarify, you guys mentioned that no other youths were involved, no one else was there at the crime scene. Can you explain how he was going to the house? Like, was he told to go there? Or, and can you also explain why second-degree charges and not first-degree charges were murder?
There's been a lot of speculation as to why or how Samuel arrived at I think a residence that everyone is now well aware of, and the details and the exact circumstances that took place that night have really been the crux of our investigation from the very, very beginning. I said that at this point, we have a very detailed understanding of what happened that night. When the truth presents itself, given all the nuance that we've looked at over the last 4 months, it's amazing how very clear things become. But those circumstances are now the subject of a prosecution, and that's all we're going to say about it moving forward.
So Brian was known to police, he had a long rap sheet. I know we saw some charges that came while it would have occurred after you guys believed Samuel Bird was killed. For just your thoughts on that, and can you kind of confirm that there was the threats towards Alana Bird, that we can confirm, yes, that was directed towards Sam's mom, and that, there was the incident with the 3 charges for an assault against a police officer with pepper spray, what kind of incident that was? And I understand they're not testing for it, so.
Yeah, big question. I'll try to cover it off. When you're doing an investigation of this depth, you learn a lot of things about events that have happened in the past and events that are happening as the investigation unfolds. And so as we investigated Sam's disappearance, we learned more about previous events, and we learned about events that were occurring in real time. And clearly some of the charges that you've mentioned occurred during our interactions with the accused. So I'm not willing to speak about it in much more detail than that, other than to say that at the end of the day, we believe that those offenses occurred, that there is grounds to proceed with criminal charges and on those offenses, and it was appropriate to do so. With respect to the specific question about the threats that were made towards Alana Bird, Sam's mom, there's different ways that a threat can be delivered and received. They were not a direct threat in this case. They were received by another individual who was not associated to the family, if that makes sense.
And we can confirm that was towards Samuel.
That's correct. Yeah.
Hi, was Mr. Farrell out on bail or conditions at the time of Samuel's murder? And who set those conditions? And then in the subsequent, things that he was charged with, was he taken into custody?
Okay. He was subject to an undertaking in relation to an offense that occurred during the course of this investigation, upon which he was released during the course of this investigation. And sorry, can you repeat the second part of your question?
Well, who set the undertaking? And
The undertaking, an undertaking is provided to a person by a police officer. So he was released.
charged and then released without going to jail, without getting.
That's right, and just to kind of anticipate what your follow-up question is going to be, in my opinion, the release on undertaking, given all the facts and circumstances of that investigation, was completely appropriate.
So at the time of Samuel's death, was he out on any other undertakings at that time?
I don't believe so.
Okay, he had a court date set maybe, but.
No, I think I'm not sure what court date you're looking at, so.
Record in front of me, but I thought there was some charges in the.
I know he had some court dates in relation to the event I'm talking about, which was on August 8th. You're talking about the time of his death. I don't know if I can give you a correct answer right now. There's a lot of information in this file.
If you email us with the questions, we can get back to you on.
I will.
Thanks.
Hello, thank you for taking my question. You said that Farrell was arrested before you found the remains of Samuel's body. Can you say what led you to arrest Farrell?
He was arrested for all the charges that he was ultimately charged for.
And I'm wondering if you can confirm, was Farrell living at the house he was charged with arson, 150 12 106th Avenue? The charges in late September. Was he currently living at that home at the time of the arson?
He had just vacated the residence.
Thank you. And then you had mentioned earlier that you might be still looking for remains. Is the search completely over for remains, or are you still looking for?
I just learned that we'll probably be searching all weekend and maybe into next week.
And one last thing, I'm just curious, how important was the grassroots efforts in the search for this? How important was it in your search overall?
In our search? Yeah, that's a loaded question, and I've addressed that previously. I've been pretty clear that we never believed Samuel was in Edmonton or in the North Saskatchewan River. I was very open with my belief from day one. I understand the reasons that other searches were undertaken. I never necessarily understood the efficacy of those searches, but I understood the purpose of those searches, and they did serve a valuable purpose. But we search where we believe we'll find something.
You've mentioned that there were a lot of false accusations and people saying, oh, police aren't looking at this case, that no one's looking at it for Sam Bird. All of this combined, how much did that impact your guys' work or relationships in trying to get information?
you know, there is value in the public perception that we were doing nothing investigatively at the time. There's a book called The Art of War, and it talks about being perceived as strong when you're weak and weak when you're strong. And I was quite happy to let that people make their own inferences about our investigation at the time.
And a lot of people obviously wanted to help out with the social media campaign and doing their own searches, so on and so forth. Was that of any assistance at all, or were people getting in the way? Because we know that when you narrowed it down to Carrot Creek, you were very firm. Stay away from this site, we're doing our job. So was there any assistance in that at all, or was it just noise?
We received, I've lost count, hundreds of tips that really don't matter now, given where we are. Obviously, you receive a few tips that are helpful. Sometimes they're telling you things you already know, so they confirm those things. You know, I'll never fault the public for wanting to assist, but, you know, the chief addressed that we live in a complex world that happens, you know, it happens in the real world, what we can touch and we can feel, and, you know, real conversations. And then, you know, especially young people these days live in a whole other world that takes place on social media. And I think versus people of our age, the lines are much more blurred for those young people in terms of what is real and what is not, and that they accept as fact what is said on social media. So yeah, like the chief said, it's a massive challenge. I'm now 25 years and can retire whenever I want, but I'm kind of starting to feel like a dinosaur with respect to some of these new investigations. Don't know if I'm cut out for it anymore.
And just before I move on here, you mentioned that there was a lot of information circulating on social media, and that was leading people to either say things that were untrue, or I guess maybe point you guys in the wrong direction there. Just talk about how much that really impacted the work you guys are doing. You've mentioned it before, but I mean, I don't think it can be stressed enough.
Yeah, I mean, for example, some days I'd come in and myself and Detective Kowalczyk, who sits right beside me, would literally spend the morning just opening tips and just kind of trying to triage them and prioritize them. And, you know, I lost count of the number of times I just wrote no follow-up required on this tip because, yeah, it just wasn't helpful at all. It was, we instantly knew we'd read it 1,000 times before. You know, so that's a whole morning wasted for two people, where we didn't do all the other things we could be doing. But you have to look because there's, you know, honestly, I've seen cases where you one tip has been missed and you go back and you're like, oh man, how did we miss that? So, and when you get more and more and more, it just becomes, you know, almost impossible to keep up. You know, in the last week, when this was really moving, I just made the decision not to open any more tips because at that point I knew where we were going. Yeah, of course.
With the tips as well, I just have to realize this is the investigative team that we have here. We're missing a few people, but this is what we have. And so when you get hundreds of tips, each one of those has to be followed up. And the amount of time and effort it takes, and whether that's going out interviewing people, canvassing for video, or whatever else, it takes a lot of effort. And when with this, in this case, a lot of untrue stuff's been put on social media, that's where we're following up that kind of stuff, and it takes a lot of time and resources for that.
And over 4 months, that's probably just days worth of wasted hours, eh?
Yeah, I would say yes. Yeah.
Hi, Stu Wiley, but I'm here with Windspeaker Media here in Edmonton. I have a question for the detective right there on the left. Can you shed some light, because this is still going to be an ongoing case here. It's not over. You know, we live in Canada, we have to govern ourselves accordingly with the law. Can you shed some light, at the end of the day, what would it be the process along for this case? Because you guys did an incredible job, you know, covering this case. It didn't make a national news, it made this international. How will you guys moving forward handle, you know, cases like this, especially with Indigenous people, women and men going missing?
Yeah, I think that question was asked at Carrot Creek. I think I said it was a big question at the time, and it still is. I'm a little more prepared to answer it today, perhaps.
Thank you.
I had an answer in my head before, and I'm gonna stop and think about it for a second. So, to help you understand that, Detective Lisa Ryu, who's been my file coordinator for the last 4 months, has simultaneously been investigating, and this whole team, as it happens, has simultaneously been investigating the case of Natanis Morasti. Why Sam Bird's case has resonated like it has versus Natanis's case, which hasn't got the same traction in the media, I don't know. But this is such a big issue in Canada, and it's such a difficult problem. I mean, it's a societal problem, A. It's a policing problem, B, in that when a person goes missing, we have to investigate. There's a perception often that we don't. I can, of course, only speak to investigations that I'm involved in or my team's involved in. I don't know what happens in other agencies, but in my experience, the Edmonton Police Service does everything it can to investigate all missing persons cases, including cases of Indigenous people. I've been involved in 2 cases now. One was the case of Trish Pangratz in 2019, where it took, in that case, very similar circumstances, missing in June, recovered in September. That case took 3 years to get to charge. You know, the process that is unplayed here in 4 months, which has led us to a criminal charge, took much longer in that case. It was not because we cared less about Trish Pangratz. It's just that the investigative process in that case took much longer. And so I explained that it wasn't that at 3 o'clock on yesterday morning, I didn't know if we would be successful. Publicly, success is measured by the result that we have today. We found Sam and we charged somebody for Sam's murder. Behind the scenes, people don't understand how difficult that is, and the evidence that we need to A, locate the body, and B, then sustain a charge in court. There have been so many times in this case where our investigation has hung by a literal thread. And the pressure of knowing that we could fail at any moment, including 3 o'clock on yesterday morning, I can't even describe that to you. And it is not for a want of trying that more Indigenous people are located and charges are brought. It's because each case is unique and we have what we have, and you can't make up evidence, and you can only work so hard. The apology that I owe after 4 months of investigating this case is that all the other cases I have not been worked on for 4 months. And people don't appreciate that. You
You know, and I think I just want to address too, like, especially when it comes to crimes against Indigenous people, like, we recognize some of the gaps in the past and some of the failures of policing to maybe take these things seriously. You know, speaking on behalf of the service, you know, and Abby Sly couldn't be here, but we were directly plugged into the community. I met several times with Treaty 6 Grand Chief Desrelais to talk with him, offer my support, understand the concerns of our community. You know, I think of the family in this incident, you look at what they're writing online, we absolutely understood their personal concerns as well as their cultural concerns, and definitely needed to connect. And I think if your question is, what did we learn? We've been learning all along the importance of having those connections to the community and the commitment. I'm going to, you know, I called Jared out here a little bit. You know, I texted Jared a week ago, and I apologize for this, Jared, but it was like, you know, great job on this. And he said everything he's done in his career has led him to this point, right? And it speaks to the commitment that an individual would have as a police officer to support a file like this, an investigation for an individual, but also for a family that, you know, maybe has not felt supported by the police in the past. And, you know, we're committed to that. Edmonton's a very nuanced city, and we recognize those things, and we've been purposeful in what we've done to develop those relations to our Indigenous communities. And several of them texted me last night and were so grateful for the support of the police and the support of the family. And I had the honor of meeting some of the family and the grandmothers as well. And, you know, it impacted me how important this was to them and their community. So I hope we can answer your question. I know there's work to do. There's always work, but I think we're on a good path. And I'm very proud, you know, of the organization, especially this group, for what they did to build that bridge and build that trust, I think is important. So.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll just take 2 more questions. Thank you.
Okay, we'll split the difference. We'll each take one. I'm just wondering if we can learn anything about the circumstances of Mr. Farrell's arrest, including where he was arrested.
Does anyone know the answer to that question? He was arrested in Edmonton. I can't give you the address off the top of my head. I just point the guys in the right direction. But yeah, is that sufficient for an answer?
Residence in Edmonton?
No, he was in a public place. He was arrested by our tactical team.
Sorry, I know I asked about this previously, but you said that Samuel's body was located farmer's field line of trees west of Edmonton. Are you able to get any more specific than that?
I probably could, but when I went there, it was 4 a.m. and dark, and someone else was driving. I don't have the, does anyone have that location? We're not, yeah.
Until we're done the search.
Yeah, we're not going to release that, I guess, until we're done the search. Sorry. Yeah, it was west of Edmonton, south of Stony Plain. Yeah.
I know,
Yeah.
is there, because the winter was coming, and that was a big deal for searchers, Alana, finding Sam before the winter came, and you were able to find his remains before it got really cold, how significant is that you were able to do that?
I think it's very significant. I won't get into the particulars, but you know, if this had gone another season, I think we would have been in a much worse place to find that. I'll conclude by saying that on Wednesday we swung for the fences, and we hit a home run.
Can I just hit a super quick one? It's just wondering, you know, you mentioned that you guys spent a lot of time looking at all of these tips that came in. Did this delay the discovery and the arrest?
No, Sam was found exactly when he should have been found.
Thank you, everyone.